Good afternoon and welcome. This is the Louisiana Federation for Children, Louisiana Parent Network live webinar, What Parents Need to Know as Schools Reopen. And my name is Paul Dauphin. I am LFC's Deputy State Director, and I am very happy to have joining us today Hazel Regis. She is the principal at Kenilworth Science Technology Charter School in Baton Rouge.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thomas Moran, President, CEO, Good Shepherd School in New Orleans. And Tiffany Crawford, LFC's Grassroots Coordinator. Welcome to all. Reminder for all online, we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube. And that's where you can submit your questions in the comment sections, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Now, before I turn it over to Tiffany, just want to get started with the latest news related to the return to schools, the reopening of schools. Governor Edwards announced yesterday that schools will reopen in the fall, and new Education Superintendent Cade Brumley will issue guidance on the return to school campuses within the next 10 to 14 days. So in about 2 weeks, we will have good guidance. So with that, Tiffany, I'll turn it over to you.
We've been hearing a lot from our parents. We've heard a lot from teachers and administrators. And so many questions. Are you all getting a lot of feedback?
Yeah, we have, we're having some feedback, Tiffany, some technical difficulties. Okay, Tiffany, can you hear us now?
She's muted.
Tiffany, please unmute your mic. Okay. Well, while Tiffany is getting back to us, I'll go ahead and start things off, and I'll start with you, Principal Regis. The general question that I guess is before us is parents needing advice as we are, I guess, 6 weeks away or so of when school would normally open. So what advice can you give parents generally in light of the fact that school districts and schools have not made their announcement as to the reopening of schools?
So first off, it's very important for parents to stay in touch with the child's school. It's important to read emails. It's important to check whether it's your child's school's Facebook or any type of social media. Making sure that you answer all questions coming from the school, because again, in order for us to make in order for us to have any plan, we're going to need to have feedback from our parents. So we encourage parents to please respond to all surveys that you receive. Please check your emails. If you receive emails from the school with any feedback that they're asking, we're asking you to also respond to all emails. Communication is very, very, very important, because in order for us to plan and make sure that we plan for our parents and students, we need their feedback. So I believe it's important to respond to all communications received by the school. And as parents, if you have questions, if you're not sure, to reach out to your child's school and also ask questions so you can get information as well.
All right, Tiffany, are you back with us? You are.
I know, but I'm back.
All right, I'll let you take over.
Okay, Mr. Moran, any additional information you'd like to add to that question?
The same thing. Communication is the key, and I think what everyone's found out in the past couple of months is just the need to be flexible. And I know as school leaders, our principal and other staff members are constantly on Zoom meetings with people from the state, and then we're in the civil parish of Orleans, so the guidance that's here, and we're also a member of the Archdiocese of New Orleans. So, and really all those entities have done an incredible job of keeping us as school leaders informed so we can pass that information along to parents. We're also fortunate enough that we have a summer program taking place virtually, and then all throughout the closing since March, parents have been picking up packets of work and staying in touch. So that drive-through circle and drop-off, we've been able to physically see parents probably 5 or 6 different times to get that face-to-face. As much as you can do face-to-face, a couple of feet away while they're in the car, and between the masks everybody's got on, but you've at least seen people and you're able to keep them informed of what's going on. But we generally are only a step or two ahead of everyone else in terms of the information we get, and as soon as we get it, we communicate it. So as mentioned before, keeping up with emails and phone blast messages and checking the social media accounts of your school is probably the best thing. And just, I know our parents have been fantastic throughout this, and I've been hearing the same thing throughout the discussions with all other school leaders. So I know it's been tough for parents, but your efforts have been appreciated in what you're doing. The whole world changed a couple of months ago, and you've been nothing but responsive and helpful, and we thank you for that.
I would definitely say that's very important. And also, if you moved recently and you had a change of address, a change of phone number, it's also important to update the school with that information, because we want to make sure all information is received by parents and families in order to make sure that we are preparing for their child when they return to school.
And that's great information. I see that our parent, Ms. Laura Fortson, has joined us. Welcome, Ms. Fortson. Good to see you. Good to see you. And I guess I'll jump into this question. I don't know. I mean, I know there's still a lot of information being released, and we're still waiting on a lot of information. But do we have any idea when schools are going to reopen at this point?
At this point, we have a calendar draft, and it's August 8th.
Oh, that's soon. Okay. Mr. Moran,
we have our regular calendar draft as if the school year would have been going on as normal. It's what form that'll take, whether it'll all be virtual, whether it'll be in person in some way, or some combination. And we're preparing for all the different scenarios. And it's so hopefully in the next 2 weeks, when we get guidance from the state superintendent, we'll kind of know which path to start going down a little bit more. But one of the keys, we're already, the cleaning process. It's easier to clean a building when it's empty, so we're ahead of the game on the cleaning. Walls are being painted, floors are being stripped, and then we've lined up all the cleaning services, and we've also got all the classrooms. We've kind of done some maps and diagrams of how to get desks as far apart as possible. We're blessed with a lot of square feet in our building, and elementary school, the little kids are easy to get. Pre-K4 room that's 1,000 square feet, you can get them 6-8 feet apart pretty easily. Now, how are you going to keep them 6 and 8 feet apart? It's going to be another story.
Yeah, because one of the questions, and I know we've heard it from parents and we've seen it, is it possible with children to do social distancing? I know a lot of what we are talking about in this COVID-19 era, to stay, keep your distance, let's love each other from far away and that kind of thing. So do you all feel as administrators and school leaders that is a possibility to keep children school distancing?
I don't even think as adults we know how to do it. So honestly, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. My school is 6th through 8th grade. They're middle schoolers. They are always wanting to touch, high five, give hugs. So I believe it will be a challenge. I think it's very, very important that we start having the conversation now with the help of our parents. Hopefully that would be something we can not have great challenges when we come back to school. But I do believe it's going to be a challenge because our children are not used to that.
Yeah. No, they're not. But I have kids all ages, 16 to 5. But my 5-year-old is very well versed in that this is a sickness that you get from touching. And it's very simply broke down for her. It's not anything that she, is talking about dying or anything, but she is able to know that, hey, I gotta keep washing my hands. I do have to not touch people, and I do have to wear a mask when I'm going out because of the corona, which is what she calls it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that yes, it will be a challenge. And I teach pre-K4, and so they love to hold and hug each other. But I think that they are smart enough to understand with some simple instructions, the what and the why and the how.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think as we have the conversations, because children, they're going to want to know why we have to wear a mask, why we have to do this. So I think the conversation with them would help as well. And I believe it's important as parents to even start the conversations now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Ms. Reed, you brought up an interesting point. Are we anticipating, or are you all going to enforce the mask wearing?
Yes, so we do plan on having our students wear masks, and we plan on having it as part of our school uniform. So we are having discussions. Again, we want to make sure we have the school logo or something fancy just to make sure our kids feel comfortable wearing a face mask. But yes.
And Mr. Moran?
We're waiting for guidance from being a part of the Archdiocese of New Orleans. We'll have a meeting in the next week or so with all school leaders throughout the diocese, where we'll get some guidance on what opening will look like. And then usually the Archdiocese follows what the Orleans Parish says. So whatever guidance is there, we're prepared for it. We've actually started to price masks, and we'll probably buy and purchase the mask just so everybody has something available. So we're making those plans, and whatever the guidance says, we'll follow it. If it says if you're 6 feet apart, you don't need to wear the mask, then we'll follow that piece. So we're just preparing for anything, but we're going to try to have as much of these things like masks available so parents don't have to have that burden of trying to go purchase or even find those. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve on that. We've already bought the thermometers in case we've got have to take temperature, and we have a school nurse on staff and social workers, and as school leaders, we're all ready to. If I need to stand at the door and take temperatures, that'll be part of my new morning routine as well. So we're just getting ready on all fronts. But you mentioned earlier, we were serving food to the community throughout all of this through our food services, and the kids who came up with their parents, many of them had their mask on, and they recognized that they had to do something different and had to pay attention to this and take it seriously. In a lot of ways, this as schools can be a blessing to get kids to be retrain them in some ways about, you can be quieter in the hallway. You don't all need to be in the hallway at once. You shouldn't all be going to the restroom at once anyway. So some of this becomes a blessing in terms of kind of looking at what you do and how you do it and getting kids focused. So one of the issues we've got is we're making sure technology is available too, and trying to find every dollar from every, grant, CARES Act, federal dollars, and so forth to make sure we've got equipment to send home with families who don't have access to an iPad at home or a laptop at home. So that's been a challenge as well. We think we'll be there if we have to stay at home in August. Hopefully they'll all have access to something issued from us to work on.
And Tiffany, before we go to the next question, I want to give a proper introduction to our parent who has joined us, Veora Fortin. She is a parent at St. Rita Catholic School in New Orleans. So a proper welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I got lost looking for the link, but I found it.
Well, we are certainly glad that you found it and you were able to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
One of the questions that we've gotten to, are you all planning, and this is for my school leaders, planning for any kind of review period to maybe cover some losses since schools closed early? Are we allowing for time to have a catch-up period to try and go over some things that may have been missed and things like that? And what kinds of provisions are you all making for that? And we'll start with Ms. Principal Regis.
Yes, so we are presently having our virtual enrichment going on. For us, we never stopped. We have students who are virtually in summer school. We also have students who are virtually enrichment. So we make sure that our kids continue to learn. We also purchase summer bridge books. All of our students will receive a book as well. Our students have one-to-one Chromebooks, so they still have their Chromebooks with them. And we make sure that we provide them with all of the information that they need to work virtually. So our kids are still working. We have a Strong Start program, which ELA, Math, Science, and Social Studies, all content area. they are able to work online. And we also have teachers who are still working with them, answering questions and making sure that they get what they need. So we're currently doing this, and this will continue for the summer.
And I know, Maureen, that you all are also doing enrichment things too. You want to add anything?
Still working. We have a strong start program, which is ELA, math, science, and social studies.
I think someone there. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Tiffany, could you ask that question again? And just to let everybody know, we're going to pop questions on the screen. These are from our parents and other viewers watching online.
Okay.
So we will answer those as we go on.
And since we're looking at this question on the screen, we were talking about face mask and temperature checking and catching up with enrichment programs and just making sure that our kids are really, really trying to stay the task. I guess I'll pan over to Mr. Moran and say, what will our classrooms look like? You know, one of Ms. Haynes has asked how many kids will be allowed in school, or are we making any special provisions for those kinds of things, or anticipating those kinds of things? Mr. Moran?
That's hopefully we'll get that in the next 2 weeks with some of the guidance from the state superintendent. Like I said, we're blessed to have large classrooms, and we try to keep our class sizes on a regular school year at no more than 20. So our classrooms, you can get 20 desks 6 feet apart in all of these rooms pretty easily, and particularly with the younger ones. So if you're allowed to have, you know, students sitting 6 feet apart, most of our student body, you know, we're around 300 in a building that's 40,000 square feet. And if need be, the cafeteria area, the library could certainly be places where kids go for learning if you have to spread out a little bit more. So we think we've got the physical space to do that if they allow the social distancing piece. And we're planning for that. And we're also planning, if they say only half your population can come in, we'll have half in and the other half be remote. And if they all need to be home, we'll be ready with, you know, laptop distribution to say, here it is for home use and for you to stay in touch with your teachers. So really looking at all the opportunities that are presented to us, we need to be ready to, you know, to spring into action.
This has definitely given a new meaning to the word contingency. And of course, we, you know, understand the challenges because we're still getting information is changing every day. We're getting more people tested. We understand that results are causing, you know, alarm in some places, calm in other places. So to be prepared and to be ready. And it's certainly comforting to know that, you know, all of these considerations are being made as we prepare for our children to start a new school year. I see we have a question from Ms. Nachelle Smith, who's talking about that even 6 feet apart does not necessarily prevent the spread of the disease. If a child sneezes or coughs because the masks are not mandatory, what do we do? She's asthmatic, and as an adult wearing a mask for a long period of time, it's difficult. So again, the question with masks, and of course I, you know, have difficulties. I have bronchitis. So I put the mask on, I start coughing, and I want to wear a sign saying, I'm okay, guys, I'm healthy, no alarm. But that certainly is a concern. How do we enforce that with kids? How do we make sure that they're wearing masks if that is going to be part of what is mandated?
And I think this would be a challenge again because of the age group for our children. I think continuous conversations. For us, we do have a school nurse that's present with us 24/7. So just having her involved and having her have those talks with our students and what the challenges we're facing, how important it is. It's not going to be easy, but I believe if we all work together, we can educate our children and we can make it work as much as possible. For us, our class size is probably going to be 10 to 15 students in a classroom based on measurement, keeping them 6 feet apart. Our plan is to have 70 students per grade, alternating having AB days or AB weeks, depending on what the state says. But it's important to make sure that students are safe, teachers are safe, because again, if teachers are not safe, we have no one to teach the students. If students are not at school, teachers have no one to educate. So again, I think with all of us working together and communicating and teaching and educating and making sure our kids know the safety measures, that will help in some way.
And I see a question from Ms. Snyder. And before I go to that question, I'm going to pick on Ms. Horton a little bit. I know that, of course, with our school leaders and our parents, the overwhelming concern is safety. But your parent, what would you like to convey to our school leaders and administrators and people that are viewing?
Well, I think the message of the day is just to listen, right? Listen to and with a sympathetic and empathetic ear to what our parents' concerns are, because we all have individual things going on, and everyone has a specific challenge that is related to how our lives are changing, and whether it be them having work things that they need help with, whether it be technology, whether it be a special needs child like the I have 4 kids. I can't even imagine having to add educating a special needs child and what that would look like. So I could just imagine that parents, and I would say to parents just to please be patient with our administrators. That would be the number one thing, is just to listen, and also understand that you're going to be heard. Our administrators are doing the very best that they can. They're doing amazing, despite everything that's going on. And just to practice patience. There are things that are going to take a lot of time. There is paperwork that needs to be processed. And so we just need to do the best that we can with our kids and be patient with ourselves and with each other.
And we're definitely here to support. Again, for our school, we have a hotline where our parents can call. If you don't know how to use a Chromebook, or you don't know how to navigate our website, we have a hotline parents can call. We support them. Our teachers are supporting. We are constantly supporting, because we do understand that this also is different for parents. You have to work, and you also have to make sure the kids are doing their work as well. So, but I believe if we work together as a team, that we will be successful.
And so I'm going to back to Ms. Snyder's question, because she had a very specific question, of course. What kind of accommodations are being made for children with special needs? And I'll pick with you, Mr. Moran. You want to start with that question?
We don't have a formal special ed program in our school, but we do have a lot of kids with accommodations, and our social workers are on top of that on a daily basis during the regular year. And they've been doing the same thing during the summer to say, how can we provide as much help and assistance for you to make sure you've got the things that you need to continue to learn. So we've got 2 full-time social workers, an accommodations coordinator, and if we've got to add more, we'll add more. It's really a focus to make sure kids have all the opportunity, they would regularly have in the building. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing. Schools with a special education component, I can't imagine the challenges of trying to do that. And as you mentioned, for parents to try to do that, it's going to continue to be something that we've got to look at as the school year goes forward. No matter what August looks like, it's going to be different than it's been in the past. We've just got to be ready to be focused on how do you get and navigate all those different challenges. So everybody becomes a social worker at this point in terms of the focus. Let's make sure we get kids' needs met, and whoever needs to jump in there and help will do it. And
And Principal Regis, do you have special needs?
So our students with IEPs, we have students that are self-contained. We have students that are in the regular education classroom, and they also have inclusion teachers. So our students have not just 1, but 2, plus we have support staff. For example, during the time that our students were learning virtually, we still provided them the accommodations based on their IEP. They still received their speech services if they needed. Our self-contained teachers still continue working one-on-one with our students in small groups. So yes, they are still receiving their services based on the IEP. We all know that the best learning is in person, but we have to make accommodations, and we have to make sure that the support system is twice the amount if that needs to happen, in order to make sure that students are not falling behind. So I would definitely say in that area, we do make sure that we meet the needs of all of our students.
And to add on that, our school leaders on the academic side have been doing the same thing with making sure speech and hearing services are still there, and all the Title I services as well. The third party that provides our Title I services, they were on campus yesterday to make the plans on what do we do to address these very concerns that you have just brought up when the year starts. So they're ready to do in person if need be, and small one-on-one, 2 kids at a time, and they're also prepared to do the distance component as well with the Title I teachers. So, and there's a lot of Title I funding that's there. There's almost more money you can use at the beginning of the year. So the staffing should be, there should be a lot of staffing through the Title I programs as well. So it's just utilizing all those resources and getting as much individual attention for students and families as you can. So.
And I know we talked earlier, because we have another question from one of our administrators, Ms. Jala. I know we talked about waiting for CDC guidelines and some guidance from the state and the city relative to temperature checks, and will we be taking temperature checks for the upcoming school year? But what kinds of provisions, because you all have talked about it, it seems with every question there has been a contingency plan. So in that same vein, you have a student that shows up that is exhibiting symptoms that align with the virus. What do we do? What do we do relative to that?
So we do have a nurse on campus, and we have a spot on our campus that's the isolation. So again, if the nurse takes the temperature or she figures that, hey, this child needs to be isolated, we have a specific spot on campus where that student will be isolated while the nurse calls the parents and we take the appropriate steps. So that is something that we have to make sure we have on campus.
We also have we have a school nurse on campus with the same procedure and process. So the good thing is we've got that in place already. So it's just, we know the nurse will be busy during the school year, more so than ever, in terms of on top of the regular, issues kids have when it comes to their health. But having that good background knowledge, most of our students now have been with us more than a year. So you have some good, background information of who has some illnesses that you really need to be on top of, and to know people's health situations. And look, it's hit a lot of our families very hard, the COVID situation. So it's, making sure you've got all that knowledge when you meet with families and you meet with kids.
And also guiding parents as well by letting them know what to look for, so the child don't even have to come to school. If your child wakes up in the morning, they have a temperature, like here are the signs, like educating our parents so they themselves could help us make sure that this is not a problem at school.
I was thinking about that too. I realize now more than ever, we do have some of our kids have allergies. So they have a runny nose all year long. And so I would encourage, same as what, piggybacking on what the principal said, us parents, we need to accept responsibility for following the rules that we already know are in place. This happens during flu season, and we need to follow the rules that our administrators are giving us. When they tell us to not bring a child to school for 24 hours following a fever or following a vomiting episode, we need to adhere to that. And that is our responsibility as parents, to make sure that we do not spread diseases amongst our children. When your child has a fever the night before school, when your child has an upset tummy, and sometimes they get to school and things spike, and we all know how that can be. But we need to be listening to our administrators, and we need to follow the rules to the T. Parents, that is my advice, to make sure that our children do not spread diseases amongst each other. And it's going to be bad at flu season too. Half of my daughter's pre-K class, out of 20 students during December, 10 of them were home, 12 of them got the flu. That's 50% of the class. And so, these things could have very well been prevented if parents had followed the rules from the very beginning. And so that would be my encouragement to parents, is just to please follow the rules that your administrators are putting in place. And when they ask you to come pick a child up, come pick your child up.
And that's very good advice, extremely good advice, because, the goal is always to keep everyone safe. We want our children safe. We want our teachers and our administrators safe. And we certainly don't want to bring unwarranted or unwanted stress in a school environment where we all already are making so many different provisions to be safe.
And if parents are worried about the child making up extra work or missing academics, just remember, we're here to support. If that's the case, we're going to implement and put plans in place to make sure that the learning continues and that child is not missing out on academics.
And so we have another question from our parent. I know we talked about hybrid and blended school settings. We talked about the possibility of doing things virtually and physically. Or is there any consideration relative to school hours, or they're going to change? Have you looked at that?
As of now, no. We have not looked at that. That is not something we have discussed. Again, based on state guidelines, hopefully we're able to give parents more information on that.
Mr. Moran?
No plan now to change the school hours. Now, logistically, things like carpool are going to take a lot longer. They all used to assemble in the cafeteria area, sitting in lines, all 300 kids. You're not going to be able to do that. So that part of your day is going to take a little bit longer. So your day may end at the same time, but dismissal process may start a little bit earlier because it's going to take, may take twice as long as it used to. So those are the kind of things from a logistics side. You just need to truly need to be flexible on all of those. And it's,
And that goes for breakfast and lunch as well.
We're blessed to be our own school food authority. So we have those contingency plans. They more than likely will eat in the classrooms. So we've got all the rolling carts to make sure the meals are pre-prepared according to, whatever regulations you have, and that they'll be, if need be, brought to the room. So making sure you have personnel in place to do that and all the safety precautions. Certainly, when it comes to the cleanliness of a building, all the transportation, we don't have transportation busing here, but I know a lot of schools that'll be a concern for parents. And then the food service piece, those are all, you need to make sure safety measures are in place in all of those areas. So it's more than you realize when you start to look it up. Everything that takes place in a school, it's a lot when you really look at it. And it's all those components need to be the policies and procedures and processes and making sure you follow those.
And I see we have a comment from Ms. Bachner, Kelly Bachner, who is the Louisiana State Director and who's been very, very on top of things relative to the legislative session in Bessie. And she just wanted parents and the viewers to know that the Department of Education is looking into online school options now that the districts can use if needed. And the governor also received $50 million in federal dollars as we've asked him to consider buying one or more devices to help with distance learning in the future. Attendance requirements can be waived during a pandemic. So this is all, of course, great information to know as we continue to, make plans for schools to reopen. Great information. Great information. What additional precautions are we making to make sure that we don't that we kind of monitor and make sure that the virus does not spread? I know we talked about face masks, we talk about temperature check, we talk about social distancing. Are there any other things that we're looking at to make sure to keep the spread? We're asking and encouraging our parents to be mindful when your child is sick. Please don't send them to school because we're trying to protect everybody. Those kinds of considerations. What other kind of considerations are we making to make sure that our children are safe?
Instead of students rotating to classes, we're going to have teachers rotating. Also, making sure we have hand sanitizer stations as much as possible, hallways, classrooms, making sure that that's there for our children as well. Instead of using a lot of paper, we are one-to-one for Chromebooks, so students will be working online more than they're in order not to transmit any type of virus, you want to make sure you stay away from paper. So we're discussing hand sanitizers usage, making sure children have their own hand sanitizers. They have their own Chromebook, they're not touching, own pencils, whatever they need, it's just for them. So they're not sharing anything with each other.
Mr. Moran.
The same sort of plans where kids will probably be in the same spot and teachers will move. It becomes like your family at home. It'll be the same, 10, 15 kids together. So it's easier to know who's in there, and if they're not moving around as much, there's less opportunity to, touch things or come in contact with anything else. And it's just, the constant cleaning of facilities. We're already starting the process with all of our iPads to make sure those things are as clean as can be before you even come here in the year. And then, that iPad is yours. You're not swapping it with somebody else. So all those procedures, making sure that everyone understands that, and just limit the opportunities for kids to be able to touch things and move. So it'll probably be stationary in a spot more than they're used to, which will be challenging. I mean, it's kids need to run around and play at some point in time. And how do you incorporate that? And I don't think anybody has the answer yet. My office window right here, I'm looking across the basketball court here. 6 neighborhood kids are playing basketball right now, so they're going to be running around. They run around on a regular basis. So it's having structured things in place that follow all the protocol from the CDC and the Department of Education, and educating kids on that to say, here's why we need you to do this.
And Ms. Allen has a question. What kind of provisions are being made relative to school bus riders? So we know transportation has been talked about a lot. I've been on a lot of Zoom calls, and that has been a concern. Anybody, whoever wants to jump in and speak to that, feel free.
Honestly, we've just had a meeting with our transportation company, and we are definitely going to have to think a lot, because that means adding additional buses, which means more money. Maybe having to decide on our routes, how effectively are we going to make sure that kids are getting to school on time if there's a delay. So we are planning to follow whatever guidelines we receive from the state, because again, safety is number one. So if that means adding additional buses, that's what we're going to have to do, depending on the number of students that we can have safely on one school bus.
And if a student lives with a family member who is vulnerable, like an older grandparent with health problems, would they have an option to stick with the distance learning? So
that's a really good question as well. I think also with state guidance as well, if that is something that can be done, yes, I think if safety is number one, so if the child have to learn from home, distance learning is something we have to do, then that is something we will have to do. So I believe all schools will be making plans for situations like this.
Anybody have anything to add?
Now, every family situation is going to be different, and to be sensitive and to those situations and caring in those situations, if you've got to make sure everyone's safe and has the opportunity to learn. So there may be 4 or 5 different methods of learning going on during the year, and some of them you don't even know about when the year starts. But if a special case needs to be made, you make it, and it's that's the value of having as many people involved at the adult level in your building. And even during the summer, we've made visits to people's houses to drop off an iPad and to check on people, and it just those are good things. Those are blessings that have taken place in this time too. It's you probably know people better than you've ever known them, and you know them at a level, a real human level. Not that you didn't before, but the day would go super fast and boom, boom, boom. Now you're forced to slow down a little bit, and you have to listen more, and you have to understand more, which I think those are all the silver linings in this whole process. So.
And that goes back to communication. So if parents start communicating the needs now as school makes decisions, we can put plans in for that. It's important for us to have the information ahead of time. I know sometimes it doesn't happen, but communication is going to be the most effective way of making sure we all get what we need.
And I know
parents out there, moms and dads, do not be ashamed to come to your administrator, your teacher, your PTA person. Reach out to someone and let them know what's going on with you. Let them know what your needs are. Do not be ashamed. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing shameful about what we need for our children. And so don't ever feel like this should be something that, like, as the principal was saying, our students and their learning is a partnership. I have found that to be very successful as a parent, as my kids are growing up. The more that I can get in there with my teacher or with my principal and talk and let them know, hey, I'm struggling here. I don't know what to do. These are assets. These are things that are going to help you and make you better. So do not feel shameful about asking for help from your administrators, your teachers, and whomever, because that is what they are there for, and that is what they are prepared to help with.
And I tell you, that is so true, so true. I tell my parents all the time, you know, the shame is not asking. The students that I work with daily, the shame is not asking, because nobody, I tell my kids, look, my mind reading classes, I'm not up on them. So you got to help me. You have to tell me when there's an issue so we can continue to make provisions. And quite honestly, this is what this webinar is all about. Let's talk about the possibilities. Let's talk about the planning. Let's talk about, because a person that has a trillion questions certainly am more comfortable knowing that every situation has been accounted for and you all are on top of it and you are planning. And so we know that, you know, if all of our administrators and all of our school leaders and all of our parents are as vigilant as you all are, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine, and our kids are going to thrive. And that's a great comfort, and it should be a great comfort to some of our viewers. I know we talked about the hybrid blended setting and talked about how this could possibly work, but we didn't talk about what can parents do now to ensure that if we go into a hybrid blending setting, we know we have digital divide considerations. What can parents do now to ensure that their children are ready to thrive in a hybrid setting? And so I'll start with Tommy and then move on to Hazel, see where we're going.
I think, as we said before, it's important to let the school know what your needs are. If your child needs a device, make sure the school knows that. We did a survey the very first time they picked up packets in March. Every family did a survey when they came through. Do you have needs at home? And we were able to get enough iPads donated or other ones we found to make sure that those were distributed to those families so those kids could do some work. So letting the school know your needs is an important piece. And then as a school, we're making sure we've got those resources available for you. But as always, just not being afraid to say we need something. And schools are going to go and try to find any way to accommodate those, those families who need it. And it's, as you mentioned, we sent off a grant today for additional iPads just for that very purpose, to say we know a lot of our families may not have, or there may be one iPad at home and 4 kids. It's how to get more technology in the house and to have more access to internet access as well. So it's those are like you said, the digital divide, and it's we're making sure we can close those gaps as fast as we can by having equipment in people's hands.
Principal Regis, you have anything to add to that?
Yes, definitely answering the surveys and communicating with the school. I know for us, we're thinking probably having students come, a group of students Monday, Wednesday, another group Tuesday or Thursday, or having A week or B week. But we also have to talk about when students are not on campus, how are they being fed? So for example, students may go home with the food the day that they're not coming, so they have food at home, or we may have to deliver food. We are thinking about all the things that we as school leaders know is important for a child to be successful. So again, parents, I stress this, and I'm going to continue to stress this. If you have a number change, let us know. If your address change, let us know. If you have a new email address, let us know. Because sometimes you send all the information out and parents are not getting it because we do not have the most updated contact number, email addresses, or just address, period. So communicating with the school, letting us know what the needs are, and again, just making sure that you know that we are here for you. Don't be afraid to reach out to us.
Right.
Coming from a parent perspective, I would say parents, now let's familiarize ourselves with software now. Go on and learn those Google Classrooms. They have seminars on YouTube that you can take up. It's just a few minutes. Zoom, learn how to do Zoom, learn Classroom Dojo. Find out about these programs that our teachers have already put in place, the ones that you didn't kind of figure out last time. Now's the time. Take a small tutorial and figure out these things now, because I guarantee you there's going to be a time where it's possible, that this could happen again. And so we can't just rely on our teachers to be walking us through link after link after link. We can do this, parents. We are capable. Our children are capable. You can a lot of times learn it from your own kids. I did that with my kid. My high schoolers were setting me up, with Google Classrooms. But I would say familiarize yourself with technology now. Get those headphones now, things like that, so that you're prepared going forward, so that you can help your child slide right into the blended learning style that seems like it's going to be here for a while.
And also if your child have a schedule, making sure they follow that schedule. Because for us, we have live classes that are mandatory and they're scheduled at a certain time. So making sure that the child is attending the live classes, and not only having the child say, hey, I completed all my work, but also check to make sure that they did complete all the work. Check with the teachers, because we all know sometimes our children are not going to always tell us the truth. So again, communicate, and not wait until the last minute.
And I think is echoing Principal Regis' sentiment about making sure not only that our children are protected, but that our teachers are protected. And we did talk about some of the safety measures to ensure that everybody's safe, because it's a safety concern for everybody. So again, thank you, Ms. Layson, for your comment. Yes, it is imperative. If our teachers aren't there, our children aren't learning. If our children aren't there, our teachers aren't teaching. And so it is imperative that we really protect everyone. That is the goal.
And our teachers also have children, so we also have to make sure that we're thinking and we're processing that this is going to be a time where we got to work together, because teachers have kids. Kids' school may have different plans from the plans that the teachers have, and they have to make sure their kids are okay, and they also have to make sure that your kids are okay. So again, we're in this together.
And we have will there be after school programs? Are the schools going to have before and after school programs at this point?
At this point, we don't know, honestly, because in order to facilitate and have, well, for my school, we do not have before care or after care, but for any type of sports or any other enrichment program, as of now, we are not sure, because again, safety is number one, and to make sure that we all have people in place to make sure that these things are being done safely. But based on the CDC guidelines, the state guidelines, then we're going to make sure that if we do have to have it, that it's something that's safe and our kids could also enjoy it as well.
This is a question for all four of our panelists, including Tiffany. But
wow,
is there a silver lining in all this? I mean, we're as we hear people say on TV all the time, we're in the middle of a raging pandemic, but is there a silver lining? And I'll start with you, Thomas Moran.
Absolutely. It's we were blessed to do food services, and when the school shut down, it was anybody in the neighborhood with children could come. So we met neighbors that don't have children here you would not normally have met. Some days as many as 700 meals. We stopped last Friday because the numbers started to dwindle as we got into it, and more sources of places for people to go get food. But we did 52,000 meals in that time frame, and it was amazing to meet those families. And then all of our families, when they come pick up the packets every 2 weeks, drop off and pick up, to hear their stories at a real personal level. It's that's always. There's been more time. A regular school day, you're moving 300 kids in and out real quick. When people came throughout the whole day to drop off and pick up, you had more time to spend and talk with people. That's been the silver lining, and just to hear people's stories and struggles. And it slowed down the school piece. Schools are a lot more than standardized tests and all that. It's about relationships, and this has highlighted this. My real hope is that people take a step back and realize that education can take many different forms, and there are other ways to look at education. And it's kids exploring outside, because that's should be part of everything. But we've become so trapped into let's hurry up and get ready for test and take the test, and boom, your year's done, and you kind of miss the purity of education and the purity of relationships. So this has been enjoyable. Not gonna lie, a lot of educators and parents look very tired on day 100. But it's yeah, I think yesterday I had either eight calls or meetings, and it's like the last Zoom was at 6 o'clock at night. It's like I had enough Zoom for today. And but when you look back, every one of those was a good interaction and a good conversation. where you learned something and you heard someone's story, and that's a silver lining, one of the silver linings for me.
Well, that's the silver lining from Good Shepherd in New Orleans. What about Hazel Regis from Kenilworth and Baton Rouge?
I would say receiving the messages from parents saying, thank you all so much. We did not know how hard this was. Just having our parents appreciate us way more than you will normally get other than teachers' appreciation. But definitely having parents appreciate educators more and having your students tell you how much they miss coming to school. They didn't know how much they would miss coming to school until now. So I think honestly, spending time with, having kids spend more time with their families, having parents spend more time with their children, and just understanding that this is a work that is not just for educators, it's a work for all of us, and we must be in this together.
And Ms. Fortin, the view of a parent.
View of the parent. I think the silver lining in this is, and coming from a person with a servant's heart, the way we have been able to take care of our poor and our disenfranchised. It shows that we could have been doing it all along, right? The way that we've been taking care of our children, the way that we've been taking care of our families, and the way that we have been able to say, hey, what's your need? And then meet it. I mean, we are feeding communities. We are educating our children. Our parents are working. We are showing the full range of what good our world can be. And so I think that that's just a blessing in all of this. And then also as a parent who has 4 kids, has a full-time job, is in school herself, and busy. I love this free range right now. I love just having time with my kids, not rushing from place to place, cooking my meals with them, and teaching them things that I haven't been able to teach them because they have to do schoolwork. And when we come home, we're doing homework. I don't get to teach them how to fry an egg. And so I feel like that's been the blessing in seeing our poor truly be lifted up, and then also the blessing in being able to mom how I've always wanted to mom.
Excellent. Paul, we can't hear you.
Taking it off of mute would help. And as we get close to the end of the webinar, we'll have a final question, I think, from online about extracurricular activities. What's the plan there?
Again, we are still waiting for final guidance from the state. Some schools already started with football practices, and everyone is asking, are we actually going to have those? So again, we're waiting for guidance. If it's safe to do so, we will. But again, everything is going to revolve around safety.
And Mr. Moran?
The same thing there. A lot of the things we participate in are with other Catholic schools in the Archdiocese. So whatever guidance is there, we'll all be following the same things. The unique thing is Orleans Parish is different than Jefferson. And so you've got to follow the parish you're in may have a little bit different requirements. So it's staying on top of those and just making sure you're following all the guidelines.
And again, as we come to a close, just to mention for those who weren't on at the beginning, the governor did announce yesterday that the State Department of Education will have some really definite guidance as to how schools should move forward. And this would cover the health issues, I'm sure, transportation. That guidance will be coming in the next 10 days to 14 days. So with that, we're going to say good afternoon. We will make this webinar available. We'll email it to everyone who we previously contacted who may have not been able to join, but you'll have a version of this on YouTube and on Facebook. And also, we're going to plan another webinar once the guidelines are announced and schools have their plans in place with definite opening dates, definite classroom configuration plans, and all those type things. We'll, as they say, come back on the air and talk about it again. So I want to thank everyone, Thomas Moran, Hazel Regis, Deora Vorton, and Tiffany. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much for having us. Bye.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.